Welcome to the Peace of Living Podcast. We are your hosts, Allison
and Jason.
And we're very happy to be with you this week. I'm happy to be back this week.
Woo.
I made Jason do it on his own last week.
It was so lonely.
It's just been so busy. It was the last week of school last week. And this year more than ever, I suddenly heard the word Maycember. And I'd never heard that before.
Maycember?
Have you heard that?
No.
Yeah, I heard it several different times and I had never heard it before. It must be like a new thing or I'm just way behind the times.
Why? I don't get it.
Because the month of May is like a second December because there's so much going on. End of year stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas December is the end of the year, calendar year.
Okay, sure.
May is the end of the school year. So it's packed full of things and it's wild and crazy.
Definitely true.
Yeah.
Agree.
Which is a wonderful segue into what we're speaking about today, which is what?
Graduation, moving on, life, the best is yet to come, all of it. Woo!
Yay. So with all of that on our minds, we've been thinking a lot about graduation and the whole idea of commencement and what that word means. Like when speakers give a commencement address and how that means that you're leaving something old and you're entering something new. Your new life is about to commence. And so I've always been fascinated by commencement addresses. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, so cool. I really enjoy listening to them.
Any favorites stick out?
I feel like I've listened to several, when they pop up on YouTube, like really popular ones. Like there's been some good ones from like Steve Jobs is a pretty famous one. Jim Carrey's. There's been some military ones that have been really cool. But I always think it's cool to hear people's advice, going into real life upon graduation. And yeah, I like it.
Especially when it's someone like Taylor Swift who has a firm grasp on reality.
Totally.
And
she gets
actually,
it.
I heard
she's just like us.
I heard that she gave actually a pretty good speech last year.
Yeah.
I forget which university.
I'm sure she did. She's really
she's
smart.
very well spoken.
Yeah.
She's super smart. Oh yeah. This is, please don't come at us, Swifties.
I'm a Swiftie.
And
I love
I know
Taylor
you
Swift.
Are. You've got a closet full of cardigans.
Welcome to New York.
What else?
Never going out of style.
I'm out. Oh, you're going to have to keep going. That's all I have.
Come on, Juliet.
Okay. Dear John. Wow, that took a turn. Anyway, if you want to listen to some inspiring commencement addresses, you can just look them up on YouTube and the best ones will pop up there. And I've been thinking a lot about this too, because I just recently bought a book for my friend Marissa. Shout out if you're listening. I don't know if you are, but if you are, happy birthday a few days ago. It was her birthday and we are huge Gilmore Girl fans, as we've probably mentioned on this podcast at one point. And if I haven't, well, now you know.
I dig it too.
Yeah.
I'm in it.
You're not even ashamed of that. I'm proud of you for that, by the way. Although we won't get into it right now, but that revival left a little wanting, didn't it? Anyway, that's a different podcast. But there's a book that Lauren Graham, who plays one of the lead characters in Gilmore Girls, that she wrote that was based off a commencement address that she gave several years ago called In Conclusion, Don't Worry About It.
Oh, cool.
So I bought that for Marissa for her birthday and I was reading through it the other day and I don't know, I just loved it. I love how commencement speeches just sort of sum up some inspiring thing that will hopefully give you enough fuel to, rocket boost your way into the next phase of life. So tonight we thought it might be fun if Jason and I gathered kind of not so much a commencement speech. We didn't sit down and formally write down the words that we would deliver, but we just thought about what advice would we give to our graduating friends who are listening to this, or anybody in any stage of life that could use just a little motivation. So I'm going to let Jason start.
Yeah, so I want to start off by just reiterating some of the things that our prophet, President Russell M. Nelson, has said. And then I want to jump into some of my things that I would say if we were giving a commencement, and this is not meant to be comprehensive, like Ali said. It's just some of the things.
It's going to be every single thing we want you to know. Yeah. And it's only these things that are necessary.
This is it. If you just do these.
Don't look anywhere else. We are the authority.
It's a 45-point plan. 45 days, 1 point per day. We're back in
day
business.
Day 45. We're back in business.
So it's late, if you can't tell. And it's been a long day, but it's all good. But to kind of set the stage first, just want to bring this back always to some things our prophet has said, whether you're graduating high school or graduating college or wherever you're at right now, especially to you students. Remember that Heavenly Father, he says this, Heavenly Father has reserved many of his most noble spirits, perhaps I might say his finest team for this final phase. And those noble spirits, those finest players, those heroes are you. And he says, it is my testimony that when we follow through with whatever the prophet of God asks us to do, the way will be opened and lives will be changed. And he said that right after telling his story about when President Kimball just kind of almost in passing invited those in attendance in this meeting that he was in to learn Chinese. And President Nelson did. And that ended up being a very formative thing in his life. And he has a great relationship with the people of China just because he acted on something that President Kimball just kind of even mentioned that they should do. And he did it, and it changed his life. He says, my beloved younger...
What? What did he say?
I don't know.
My beloved Bunger sisters?
Bunger sisters. My beloved younger brothers and sisters, you're among the best the Lord has ever sent to this world. You, and we've mentioned this before, you've got the capacity to be smarter and wiser and have more impact, Bunger sisters, impact on the world than any previous generation. And then he said, I promise you that wherever you are in the world, wherever you are in the covenant path, even if at this moment you are not centered on the path, I promise you that if you will sincerely and persistently do the spiritual work needed to develop the crucial spiritual skill of learning how to hear the whisperings of the Holy Ghost, you will have all the direction you will ever need in your life. And I know upon graduation, sometimes we feel pretty directionless, sometimes aimless, even into your career. Like, what do I really want to be doing? Well, there you have it. Learn to do it, sincerely and persistently do the work needed to develop the spiritual skill of learning how to hear the whisperings of the Holy Ghost. And you'll have all the directions you'll ever need in your life. And then he said, lastly, I just want to say this. He says, when you know your life is being directed by God, regardless of the challenges and disappointments that may and will come, you will feel joy and peace. So I feel like we could just end the episode there. That's some great advice.
Good night.
Good night.
That's great. I was just thinking how many people are going to be downloading the Duolingo app after listening to this story of Nelson. And I tried. Remember that? I did. I had like a 500-day streak of trying to learn Chinese because it was one of those things to do during the pandemic that someone mentioned would be a good idea. And I thought, I'm going to learn Chinese on Duolingo. And I learned a few phrases, and then it got to a point where I got tired of being bullied by that little owl that was telling me it was time for my lesson. And so I gave up, sadly. But this is maybe a good call to repentance for me to jump back on that horse and learn a language. I don't know.
Maybe. And I mean, we weren't in that meeting, but there's, I remember just like several things, not to make this whole podcast, but like just certain things that even like President Hinckley would say, or President Monson would say, or even just how they were that have stuck with me, even like one or two sentences of what they said that maybe didn't have an impact on anybody else, but like they made a huge impact on me. And I think that's one of the cool things about having a prophet is that the Spirit will relay the messages that you need to hear, in the time you need to hear them. And I feel very grateful. Like there were some very specific things that President Hinckley said in a few of his talks, just about how to be. He even wrote that book, like Way to Be or something like that. And, and the talk, I Am Clean, and which is all about Joseph F. Smith, who I love. But like those stories, like really just kind of changed my life, and the spirit will tell you what you need to hear.
Yeah. So that's maybe like a lesson in and of itself is as you're reading the scriptures or listening to the words of the prophet, or really anyone who could be inspired, if there's even just like one line that stands out to you, that could be for a purpose. So
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Really like that. So when President Nelson and I get to have a one-on-one chat someday and be like, so what did I teach you? Learn Chinese.
Yes.
That's what I took away.
Yes. That's right. That's right.
Okay. Well, how do you have a really long list, or do you want to just do this one at a time?
You can start. I've already
Ping-pong
talked
it
a
back.
bunch. Let's hear from you for a minute.
Okay. Well, I kind of alluded to this at the beginning when I mentioned that book by Lauren Graham, but the number one thing that's been on my mind when I'm thinking about graduating seniors, whether you're graduating from high school or college, or you're like, you know, our sister who just got her master's degree.
Yeah.
Whoop, Brienne.
So cool.
The message that keeps coming to me is don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry. And boy, am I the pot calling the kettle black here, because Jason's laughing because
You don't worry.
I worry a lot less than I used to, but I was like notorious for how easily worried I was as a child. I was always worried about everything. I even worried about my cholesterol at the tender age of 6 years old. Would you believe that? You know why? Because there's a reason for this, though. My parents, back in the days of CD-ROMs, I know that most of the people listening to this don't even know what that is, but there used to be what you would know as a CD, if you even know what a CD is.
It's like a Blu-ray.
It's like but yeah. How do I convince
Which is
this?
kind of like Netflix.
How do I say this in terms that you'll understand?
That's not nice.
Oh, no. That was... Anyway, my parents had gotten us this CD-ROM, this disc called 3D Bodyworks. And it was all about like learning all about the human body and the way like different functions of the body worked, your muscles, your like skeletal system, your vascular system, all of it. Like it was really fascinating, really interesting. Why am I even telling this story? We should just cut this. This is useless.
Just keep going. It's great.
Why am I telling this story? Anyway, on this disc, there was a feature that simulated how... You're already laughing. You don't even know what I'm going to say. Do you know what I'm going to say? Have I told you this? Do you know why I am the way that I am? Yes! You remember now. It was so... Oh, my goodness. I will never forget that. It simulated what a heart attack was like for an adult male. And it showed how a heart constricts. And you could hear the man gasping for air while this is happening. And it had this, like... this graphic showing all of the buildup of cholesterol, the plaque inside the arteries of this man's heart, and it just said, cholesterol is to blame for this heart attack. So I was very aware of my cholesterol intake from a young age, and so I would always read the labels, and I wouldn't eat ice cream for a while. I'm over that now, but I saw that ice cream had a fair amount of cholesterol, so... Eggs were a big no-no for a long time. So anyway, you learned a lot more about me than you needed to know. We're going to edit that whole thing
That was amazing.
out. But the whole point is just there's no need to worry. It's kind of useless. I think we spend more time torturing ourselves in our minds about what might happen, that's even worse than if that thing should actually happen. I guess God was trying to teach me a lesson in my college years specifically about this message of not worrying.
I thought you were going to say cholesterol.
Well, yes, about my cholesterol. He's like, you really got to watch it. When I was in the church sorority that we've mentioned before that no longer exists up at the University of Utah Institute building, every Wednesday night we would meet together and we would have like a little devotional to kick off all the meetings. And the scripture that we would repeat, that was our theme, was Doctrine and Covenants 68:6, which is the one that's, wherefore be of good cheer and do not fear, for I, the Lord, am with you and will stand by you. And ye shall bear record of me, even Jesus Christ, that I am the Son of the living God, that I was, that I am, and that I am to come.
She just said that by memory, guys.
I'm hoping I remembered that word
That's awesome.
for word. If I stumbled, I apologize, but look up the actual reference, DNC 68:6. But we repeated that weekly, for the 2 years that I was in that sorority. And I feel like God was trying to get that message into my head. Like, do not fear, be happy, don't worry. I feel like, however many times, I don't know, there's some debate about how many times the Bible says do not fear. Some people say that it's 365, which is perfect, once for every day of the year. But there's also others that are like, it doesn't actually say it that much, but it says it a fair number of times in different ways. Do not fear. And I would probably say that almost as like, don't worry. That's Jesus' way of saying, just don't worry. Stop worrying. I've got you. Focus on me. Everything's going to be okay. So if you're like me and you're prone to worry, just take some deep breaths and even just play out in your mind. Worst case scenario, if all your worst fears came true, what would happen? Would it be so bad? You would be okay. Ultimately, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. not to take it too far, but like, I'm really grateful for a friend of mine that I that I have, and he even kind of helped me understand that too. And he was like, what is the worst that could happen? Like, really drill down and tell me, like, what is the worst thing that could happen? And even if the worst thing does happen, like, even if it this is so terrible, but even if it meant that I died, like, and I don't want to die, but like, things are going to be okay. Even with that, things will be okay. You know, it's cool.
Yeah, but we're going to totally strike that from the record. That's not going to happen. So,
well, you know.
No,
things are gonna be
yeah,
okay.
I appreciate that. See, that's just another thing another lesson to me that I'm like, see, that is my worst fear would be like you dying, but.
And it would be terrible. I don't want to like shy around that.
Oh yeah, like that doesn't mean that you're not going to have
it.
horrible. Really walking back on this whole worrying thing. It doesn't mean that you're not going to suffer and be in agony, but just don't do it.
Right.
Just embrace that.
Right.
But yeah, like I don't remember who said it, but someone in a talk, I feel like it was Sister Holland, but it also could have been Elder Packer. So I'm not sure. Don't quote me. It might have been Sister Holland quoting Elder Packer now that I think about it. And she said that like most of the things that I worry about don't happen.
Yeah.
So maybe in a way there is a purpose to worrying, because if you're worrying about it, it won't happen. So you can decide for yourself whether you think worrying is worth it or not. But I'm working on actively not trying to do that. And I feel like it's helped, right? Am I better?
Totally. Yeah. Like God just does have a hand in your life, period. Like even like President Nelson said, even if you've strayed from the covenant path, doesn't mean God's not with you or doesn't care about you. He is just as much as ever. Just it might be a little harder to hear him or notice him sometimes, but that doesn't mean he's in no way like a lesser part of your life. And when he's on your side, which he always is, you really can't lose. Like every negative can be turned into a positive through Jesus Christ and his atonement.
Well said. Okay, well, what's next on your list?
Okay, so I've got kind of just a bunch. I'm just going to rapid fire and just kind of talk for just a second, and then Allie can cut me off because I'm probably going to go too long. But this is true. But I wish I could have like heard this, and maybe rather than heard, internalized this, especially when I was out of high school and especially after graduating from college, because it took me a long time to figure out like what I wanted to do with my life as far as a career. And I mean, inside, I kind of had ideas of like, when I'd look in the mirror and what would I, and tell myself, what do I want to spend my life doing? And I had like kind of ideas. I had more of an idea of how I wanted to be based off of like role models and mentors and friends that I had had. I'm like, I want to be like them. I don't know exactly how to get there or what that means, but I want to be like them. But I wish somebody would have told me like, look, Jason, like just sample things for the next 10 or 12 years, which is basically what I did. But I never really felt like that was okay. Because I had, and it's wonderful if you know in high school or like early on in college, like what you want to do with your life with as far as a career goes, that's awesome. That just wasn't me. And I had plans, which I've kind of talked about. We'll give the full story some other time. But I mean, I was like dead set on law school. And then I had like my applications ready and I just didn't send them in. I was thinking of getting my PhD from the business school at the U and like had that pretty much ready to go and didn't do it. Like lots of different things. I worked for a mortgage company for a long time, for several years, like during college and then upon graduation full time. That's something I didn't even really know what it was. Like I didn't even know really what loans or mortgages or how that even worked, but I found myself in that career. And so if I were talking to my younger self, I'd say just take the next few years, even next decade until you're about 30, because if you're 30 or so and it takes you that long to find something that you love, that you feel passionate about, that still means you've got over probably 30 years to work. That's a long time.
Maybe even more, because none of us are going to retire.
Yeah, right. So find something that you love, but take the time. You go work a job for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and just see what you learn. See if you like it. And you just don't know what you don't know. And so go sample stuff. Like for me in high school and even college to an extent, it was like I had kind of some tunnel vision. It was like I'm going to be either a lawyer or a doctor or something in business and finance. And there's so much out there in the world that we're just not exposed to at a young age. And so if opportunities come your way, kind of like with Joseph Smith, honestly, after he had the first vision, he said, it had never even occurred to me that none of the churches were wrong. The idea that they was like a completely new idea to him that he hadn't even considered. And so if an opportunity presents itself, and it seems like it could be a good experience, even if you're not sure if that's what you really want to do for the rest of your life, go try it. See what you can learn. Like, and even though I'm not full-time in the mortgage world or in the tech industry, doing sales like I was before I was in seminary full-time, I'm still grateful for those experiences that I had, because they did kind of like helped me get to the path that I'm now on. I don't feel like those experiences were wasted at all. In fact, they're still some of the richest, best blessings and experiences I've had in my life so far. And so if it takes you some time to find the thing that you just like love going to work with, and maybe that changes, but don't feel bad or dumb or ashamed for taking some time to figure that out, because you're going to be fine. Life is long. We're playing the long game here. You don't have to know when you're 22, 25, even 29 or whatever, what you're going to be doing. Just take some time to kind of figure it out and see where the Lord would have you, and figure out what, like we've talked about in a previous podcast, try to see what he's called you here to do. And I guess just with that, just remember, like, it's okay to change plans. Like maybe you just feel something and you're like, I want to go try that now, or this sounds really interesting. It's okay. Again, life is long. Don't lock yourself into something. Like, you got a long time. Keep that, like we've talked about before, keep that eternal perspective. It's even with your career. And like we've talked about before with finding your calling, I do believe God's given each of us talents and gifts and abilities that kind of come naturally to us, and they're almost things that like can't really be taught. It's kind of those intangibles and those passions that we have. And I'll say it again. I love this quote that your calling kind of lies in the place where the world's deep hunger and your deep gladness meet, and they kind of intersect. And just see where that is. And maybe that's not necessarily even a job, but maybe it's just like staying home with the kids, right? And like, that's what the world needs, is those kids, and you love them. So that's your calling, right? Maybe it's just like you're called to be, you know, a great neighbor or a great friend or something, but like find that place where your deep gladness and the world or your neighborhood or your family's deep hunger meet. And you're going to find it pretty fulfilling. I used to kind of try to tell myself, and it's okay, because I know a lot of people that are this way, but it just didn't work for me. But I tried to tell myself for a long time that like I was coin operated, meaning like I just was all about the coin. Like,
you told yourself that?
That's how I wanted to be.
Wow.
I really did.
Was this obviously before we were married then?
Well, yeah. Until like when, you know, some of those jobs that I had early on in our marriage, it was like, I'm about the money. Like, I'm in this for the money.
That's right. You were pretty worldly.
Yeah. Well, no, I kind of like, that was like my main motivator. I wanted to make as much money as I could, even if the work was kind of lame and I wasn't all that interested in it.
No, I remember. Yeah, for sure. I remember we're just opening up a little bit of our marriage here, talking about this, but I remember feeling like this sense of discomfort whenever you would talk about like how much you could make with a certain job. And I'm like, yeah, but you're miserable. So there's that.
Well, yeah. And I kind of had like just suppressed that, I guess, like just telling myself it's worth it. Like, you know, I'm just going to make all this money, whatever. And for me, and I know some, that's totally fine. That's just how they live. They're coin operated. Boom. But for me, I found that really only satisfied to a point. Sure, it was like really fun, and it is fun, and money is a huge blessing. But for me, I had to find something that brought me more fulfillment and tapped into like who I am. Like we talk about at work sometimes, like sometimes I felt like I was a rake trying to do a shovel's job. And I really wanted to be a shovel because the shovels were so cool and they were so good at what they were doing. But as hard as I tried to be that shovel, I'm just a rake. But the rake can do some amazing work for what a rake does. And so it kind of was a brutal process, a painful process for me I kind of always knew it, but to like accept it and to own that I'm a rake. But once I did, I've found some pretty great things to do with that rake, and it's worked out. And the crazy thing is like, there's even, you know, not diving deep into these finances, but like you find ways as a rake to make the money too. You don't have to be the shovel.
Jason's actually more of a Swiss Army knife because he's held like 50 different jobs simultaneously. So don't let him fool you. He is more than just a common rake.
Well, you're sweet. It's you got to do what you got to do, but it's fun. Like it's fun. I enjoy doing those different things, you know? And,
but I like that. Yeah. I like that you don't pigeonhole yourself into one thing in particular.
Right.
I like that you diversify and that there really is there's no one right way to do things when it comes to your career. And you've proven that. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I mean, we both work very hard and that's probably, you know, a lifestyle that's also not for everybody. Not everybody would want to do that or choose to do that or even maybe can, but it's, I do feel grateful for the opportunities that we've had. And like right now, it's like number one, seminary and institute are my priority. Like every day, that's the first thing on my plate. But if I can sufficiently take care of that to a place where it's staying healthy and it's growing and I'm not complacent about it, just like with anything with our marriage, like I don't want to get complacent with anything because that's, you know, where danger creeps in. But like, if that's well taken care of, then Yeah, like I love like jumping on and helping people with their mortgages still. Like it's a lot of fun. And with the writing and talking about cars and stuff, like those are three very different things, but I have found fulfillment in all of them. And like you said, I hope that if there's someone listening that feels like I have to be like so and so, or I have to be like that shovel over there, but maybe you're a rake, but maybe you are also pretty good at doing whatever other tools are out there, the Swiss Army knife, I don't know, but that's okay. Your life is your life. And I know some people do look at mine and be like, that is crazy. And it's kind of weird that I do all those different things, but it works for me and I like it, and I don't necessarily think this is like how it's always going to be, maybe, but that is another bullet point that I had here that I wanted to mention is that don't ever think that like you've like arrived or like that the journey's over. And like, I really do. That's probably one of my very favorite, if we could have favorite articles of faith, that's probably one of my very favorite ones is the one that says that we believe in all that God has revealed, all that he does reveal, and that he will yet reveal many great and important things pertaining to the kingdom of God. And I believe that about our life together and our lives individually with our careers and our jobs and our children and whoever else. Like, I just think that it's never really over. Like even, 50, 60, 70, it's like, I don't want to just like settle in and think like, oh, the best is behind me. I even then I would hope to believe that the best is yet to come and there's going to be many great and important things still to come.
I mean, 70 is when I plan on being a triathlete.
Yeah. And there's plenty who do that. No
more inhibitions.
That's right. So anyway, that's something. Just don't think that you've arrived or that the journey's over, but that the Lord, there's going to be many great and important things in your life. And so put yourself in a position where you can stay open to hearing him, even when times are good and you feel, satisfied and things are great. Like, allow yourself to be directed still, because there might even be something better, something new and exciting that you never would have imagined before.
Right. Because again, if we're taking this all back to the very point of us being here on this planet,
yeah,
we believe in the plan of salvation. We believe that what God ultimately wants is for us to learn and grow and become like he is. And I don't think that is dependent upon us fulfilling specific vocations or hitting a certain amount of like a salary point each year or, climbing a corporate ladder. I mean, these are all good things, but
sure, yeah.
I think that, even if it's a hobby that you develop, it doesn't have to be something that is lucrative or that is even your means of living. Just do something that connects your soul with the divine and really just fills you with that spark of, I don't know what to call it. Like when we tap into whatever's creative within us, we're tapping into something godlike. And I think that's what God wants us to get into touch with.
Well, to me, like I heard this phrase a long time ago, like a decade ago now, but it was in this article I was reading and it said that you are nothing but the fruit. And it's like, you might be like a great tree, like even like Jesus talking, when he cursed the fig tree, right? It like looks nice and stuff, but did it produce any fruit? No. And it's like, well, then it's going to wither, right? Like I don't care, like produce the fruit, whether that's learning to, any new skill, not just in like your work or vocation, but like, what's the fruit you're producing to become like him? Are you learning, developing? You think of all the things that God and Jesus are. I think he probably rejoices when we're trying to, yes, nourish the tree, but actively produce fruit that we ourselves can enjoy and others. And as like meager as like this podcast is, right? I hope that this is sometimes some sweet fruit that someone can enjoy, at least, we're trying here. And sometimes I think that like success, especially in Western culture, is viewed as like how much money we can make. And which is crazy to me because I've known so many people that have made a ton of money and are miserable. They don't like going to work. Their family life's rough. They're just not happy people. To me, and I'm not just saying this, success to me truly is like happiness and becoming like Christ, like in producing the fruit to become like Christ. If I feel happy and I'm like becoming like Christ and like trying to follow him, that's happiness to me.
Money isn't the key to happiness. You know what is? Joy.
Profound.
Michael Scott.
Michael Scott. That's right.
There's actually a Lauren Graham quote from that book.
Oh, cool.
That I thought would actually go along really well with what you're saying here because, she's an actor. Anyway, she just talks about how she has had both like starring roles and she's had supporting roles. And she said there's like this common misconception in the performing world that only the people that have the big role and top billing are the ones truly enjoying themselves. And she's like, that's just not true because I can say that I was just as happy playing townsperson number 1 when I was like playing the lead in Hello Dolly. And
yeah,
I loved that thought that she's like, you find the joy in whatever you're doing. And she has this page that says, maybe it's not acting for you. Maybe it's baseball or coding or taking care of kids. But whatever path you choose, whatever career you decide to go after, the important thing is that you keep finding joy in what you're doing, especially when the joy isn't finding you. Treat every day like you're starring in it. Don't wait for permission or good reviews. If you can do that, you'll be surprised by how far you might end up sailing. I love that thought of like, treat each day like you're starring in it. This day has a purpose. It matters. What am I going to do with it? How am I going to fill this role? Because when I get into the mindset of like, here's another day of me taking care of my kids and needing to get this work done and cleaning my house. And instead, if I flip that into like, I get to take control of this day and like make something out of it, then mentally I enjoy myself so much more and I'm a lot more fun to be around. Ask the kids and you.
You're always fun to be around.
I'm always fun.
Always fun.
That's right.
Well, it kind of goes back to like our gratitude podcast episode too. Like just having the attitude of and it's hard to maintain that. I totally get it. I'm right there. But it's like to think of like, man, this is cool. Like I get to do this. Like here I am. This is my life. I'm alive. I was born. I get these opportunities. It's so cool that I get to experience all this, that I'm even here. It's awesome. So I wanted to say just a couple other things here too, is that, so one thing we've mentioned this on the podcast a little bit before, but I would say to graduates, definitely, and this, for me, I feel like this has been a tool from Satan that he's kind of ramped up even in recent years, which is so weird. But I would say ignore the temptation to look backward. That it has been for me in my life, and just where Satan will try to like always have you looking back. And if you look at even, the commentary on the church even now, so how many times is the church's past or things that maybe somebody said even 50, 100, 200 years ago been, dredged from the bottom and brought to the surface again. It's like, we just can't stop looking back. We and now elder, I think, Ahmed Corbett gave a great training on this a few years ago to seminary and institute teachers, where he said this very thing. He's like, Satan always wants us to look back, because if we're looking back all the time, we can't go forward. And I would say that to any recent graduates or anybody listening, like, we just got to stop looking back. Like, we just got to leave it alone, and look forward. And along with that, like if you're in a career or something where you're like living, we say living for the weekend or living for the next big vacation, and like, there's not joy to be found even in small moments day to day, then you're probably in like the wrong spot. Like if you're just living for the weekend, like hopefully you can cultivate through relationships and through your vocation. Like again, it's not going to be easy all the time. And especially with the best jobs, even if you're very happy and satisfied with your job, like I am, there's still days when it's so hard and it's draining and exhausting. And maybe some days I just would rather not be there because I need a break. But still, don't just live for the weekend. Like live life now. And there's, Allie and I, we've tried to, maybe we could, we've tried to like live this. Let's like live our lives now. Let's not wait until some future date. Let's not wait until whenever. And sure, like I don't know, could maybe some people disagree that that's maybe not the best way to live. And maybe there's some arguments there, but at the same time, like, let's live it, like, let's not wait until we're retired to go on these trips. Let's not wait let's live life now. Let's enjoy the week. Let's enjoy Monday through Friday and not just Saturday and Sunday. And if you're miserable Monday through Friday in your job or something, and you just can't wait for Friday to get out of there, then yeah, maybe God's trying to tell you something there,
Yeah, for sure. And we have both been there.
Oh yeah, we
Absolutely.
have been there. That's coming from a place of sincerity.
We can speak from experience. I know that I've had a handful of jobs in particular that I'm very happy where I am now. I don't feel like I have reached like the pinnacle of my achievements. I hope not anyway. I hope to always be able to improve and to grow. But I'm kind of doing what I always dreamed I would be doing, which is making a living off of just writing and being able to do it from home.
Yeah.
And what a huge blessing that is and the flexibility that it gives me. But I had to cross a lot of wrong bridges first before I got years
of drudgery.
Years of treachery.
No, it was.
The title of my memoirs.
For both of us.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just reflecting. That's what it felt like.
Years of treachery. Our newlywed years were years of treachery.
No. That was amazing.
Yeah, no, that was, you talk about finding the joy. That's how Jason and I found the joys.
Yeah.
It was like we had to endure the 8 hours of going to our separate jobs that neither one of us really particularly loved. We loved the people we worked with. That needs to be clearly
stated. And they were great
Oh,
experiences.
yeah.
It just wasn't, it was a bad fit.
It's in terms of like fulfilling our roles professionally that we felt we were supposed to be fulfilling. It was not the right fit for us. You said that well. But even then though, yeah, we found ways to find joy. Like if our friends, the Merrills, happen to be listening to this, they know very well how much we just partied it up with them as much as we possibly could in those years.
Yeah.
We went on weekend trips. We cooked all the best food. We saw all the movies. Like we did it all. We did as much as we could to enjoy our lives in the midst of something that we didn't quite love very much, which was our professions at the time. But I mean, that's always going to be the challenge as human beings, is identifying the things that are going well and the things that maybe aren't, and then just trying to strike a balance.
Yeah. And I know this isn't going to work for everyone, but again, just like, don't wait to go on the trips. Don't wait to have the fun.
Yeah.
Even if it's Tuesday or Wednesday in the middle of the week, like go, you don't have to wait till Friday.
Go get some ice cream or something.
No, really do it.
Right.
I know maybe not everybody's going to agree, but that's what's worked for us. And you just don't know, like, again, not to take this in a morbid direction, but you just don't know the time that you have. And I want to like squeeze that sponge of every day that I have and like absolutely just use up my life. Like life is meant to be lived. Cars are meant to be driven. Money is meant to be spent, honestly. Save it, yes, but those things are there to be used. It's like people that buy cars and just park it and never drive it. That thing is meant to be driven. Enjoy it. All the experiences that you could have with that thing. If it's so precious that you're not enjoying it, maybe that's not I don't know. You can do whatever you want with it. But like for me, the cars are meant to be driven. The money's meant to be spent. Life is meant to be lived. And not just when I'm 65 or 70 and retired.
Yeah. And my knees are blown out.
Exactly.
And all of that. it's funny you should mention cars because that kind of has to go along with my next point.
Great.
If that's okay. Are you
go ahead.
finished with yours for now?
Yeah, go ahead.
You'll appreciate my choice of verb here. Embrace mistakes. It's not just like accept the fact that you're going to make them. It's embrace them. Like you will make mistakes. In fact, I was listening to Bob Iger, who's the CEO of Disney. He has a autobiography out that, well, he wrote it like when he had retired from being CEO. Now he's back in that role. But so he spilled all of his secrets and now we know. But anyway, I just like that part of his success is that he acknowledges that making mistakes is just inevitable, especially as a leader. And he says, I don't have the exact quote, but he basically was like, there's no way of getting around it. You are going to mess up. So you might as well be prepared for that and apologize when it happens. And I feel like that's a good lesson to keep in mind, especially for those of you who are like me, either current or recovering perfectionists. I'm working on that. But just one small way that I've tried to put my money where my mouth is in this regard, and Jason can attest to this, is with our little manual Miata that is in our garage right now.
Yeah.
Some of you will know that earlier this year, I've talked about this like several times because it was a major turning point for me in my life, but I got invited by, an outlet that I write for to attend that manual driving school that Minnie, as in Minnie Cooper, was offering in California.
Yeah.
And I was so scared to do it because I didn't want to be humiliated because, again, back in our newlywed days, those early years of drudgery, as you put them, I know, never going to let you forget that.
Sorry.
I know what you meant. Jason, we had an older Miata, like a 92. So it was a little bit rustier, but it was a cool little car. But I didn't know how to drive stick at the time. And Jason was trying to teach me in the church parking lot. And I just wasn't getting it and just kept stalling that thing. And it just was, I was so frustrated because we were still in that phase of marriage where I was trying to fool you into thinking that I was flawless. And when my weaknesses were laid so bare before your eyes, I felt humiliated and embarrassed, which I know you don't remember this the way that I do, but it was scarring for me. And so like, I never thought that I was going to revisit this thing that had caused me so much pain. And yet this manual driving school kind of made me face that fear head on. And I didn't master it, but I did, like, I got the car around the track several times in that, like, 3-hour period that we got to practice. So when I got home, I told you, I was like, we should get a car with a manual transmission because I want to get better at this. I know I get the concept, but I want the execution to be smoother. And as if Jason needs any persuasion to go out and buy a car. He's like, what? I'm on it.
Okay.
I already have several tabs open on my computer and I've been waiting for just a moment for you to tell me I had permission. So anyway, like, how long has it been? Like a couple months that we've had it now? It's been fairly recent.
Yeah. It's been like 2 months.
Yeah. And the first 6 weeks of us owning that car, I didn't touch it because
You're gonna drive this thing?
I know. Well,
you told me to buy
it. I told you, yes.
Well,
but Jason drove it around a bit, and in my defense, though, we have had press vehicles every week that I've been testing too. So it's not like I've just been ignoring it and doing nothing else. Like I've been busy. There's been stuff.
We've been driving
a
lot.
Yeah, but I have always intended to, and finally made good on that intention to take that car out. And you know that, what was it, 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
I decided that the ideal time for me to practice this car was going to be after the sun had gone down and I had the cover of darkness in our quiet neighborhood to go and practice in this car. And so I'm very proud of myself. I boldly took it out on my own that first night and made it as far as around the corner to my first stop sign that was going up a hill before I called you and begged you to come run to my rescue because I could not get that dang thing to go on this hill, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And turns out that what I thought was first gear was actually neutral, which would explain why the car wasn't going anywhere. But anyway, I had to get used to that. And Jason, bless his heart, literally ran to my rescue after I blew out the tires trying to figure this out. Didn't. It's what it felt like. Fine. It's what it felt like. But like, I've taken that thing with you by my side at night, just close by here in our dark little neighborhood when there's no cars around, just practicing the basics of getting those smooth transitions. I'm, again, still not really great at it, but just this past Friday, wow, that was just a few days ago.
Yeah.
Mary was in dance class. It was Finn's last day of school. It was just me at home. I needed to run up to my parents to go water my parents' plants. And I had just resolved that I was going to take this car out by myself. Jason was at work and I knew the basics. I had the concepts down. Like I knew I could get there. And I felt fairly confident. Well, at the same time, I told myself this. I was like, listen, me, I know I can do it. And I also know that there's a very good chance that I am going to make some mistakes as I do this. And I'll probably stall the car. I may even like embarrass myself in front of other drivers. I won't put anyone in danger, but yeah. I'm probably going to make some mistakes, but I have to do this. I knew I had to do this. And so I like pumped myself up and cranked up some tune on my phone that was, I don't know exactly what I was listening to, but like something peppy that was going to put me in a good spirit driving this car. And I made it all the way up to my parents' house without a hitch. And I did struggle once going up the hill, putting it into first gear after a dead stop. But then, I got it going fairly well. And there were people I should rewind and say that I actually said a prayer asking Heavenly Father to remove obstacles from my path. It sounds so funny saying it out loud because how often do we do this? We're like, okay, I'm going to do this hard thing, but here's what I need from you. Yeah. I need it to be completely easy. Don't have anyone there watching me. Don't have anyone coming up around the corner on that hill that's hard to see because that'll make it difficult. Definitely don't make me embarrass myself. I don't want to stall in the middle of the road. Guess what? I did all of those things and I had all those problems on that short trip up to my parents' house and back. Like it was fairly smooth going up, but coming down, like I took a chance and went on the busier road to go back home because I was like, hey, I'm gaining confidence and I can go on this more busy street. And guess what? I won't go into specifics, but I got honked at. and normally, I know, again, like I didn't do anything dangerous. Nobody's life was put in jeopardy here. And there wasn't anything close to an accident. It was just an inconvenience that I posed on the road by stalling the car at an inopportune time. And I was so proud of myself because normally if I got honked at, that would be like so jarring to me and I would feel bad. Like the rest of the day, I would feel bad because somebody honked at me, which meant I did something wrong. But because I had prepped myself in advance and said, I will probably make some mistakes. And I may even get honked at, I had told myself, and it happened. And I was not at all shaken by it because I was like, yep, this is exactly what I knew was going to happen. And, I courteously waved to that other driver. I'm like, I know. I'm a big pain in the butt right now. I acknowledge that. And everyone was fine. We all got home safely. And I was like really proud of myself, not because I did it perfectly, but because I did something hard and I didn't do it perfectly, but I met the objective, the brief, as Paul Hollywood would say. Yeah. I did it. I completed it. And it wasn't flawless, but even how I handled the mishap, the mistake in the middle, I was very proud of. So that was a very long-winded way of saying that you should embrace your mistakes and just say, I am going to mess up and it's okay.
It's okay.
Because that's what I'm here for. And God's going to help me and pick me back up again. So.
Well, yeah. And that reminds me, like we've talked about before, just like the idea of being in a state of like probation, not that we're in trouble, but it's like we're new on the job. I've never done this before. And like going with the driving thing, it's like you weren't born knowing how to drive. You just kind of figured it out as you went along. And with God, we're doing the same thing. And the beautiful thing is that when we mess up and make mistakes, stall out, he doesn't count it against us. It's so cool. And
even though I asked him to help me not do that.
Right. He might let us stall a little bit, but like he's going to be there to help us get it started again and still get us home. You still got home that day.
I did. Yeah.
You know?
And I kind of feel like I learned more, like he amplified that lesson by not letting it be perfect.
Yeah. That's the beautiful thing about his plan is like we get to come down here and mess up despite our best intentions. It doesn't count against us. We learn more because of it, and we still get to go home as if we had never stalled in the first place. It's brilliant.
Isn't he great? He's so merciful and loving. That's wonderful.
Incredible. Yeah. Incredible.
Do you have more on your list?
I just have a couple more I want to mention real quick.
Two more? I only have one, so go for it.
Okay. So I do want to say this, like, and I'm not saying I am like the perfect example in this, but it is something that I've learned and tried to implement in my professional life, especially, or really in whatever I'm doing. But you will find as you get into your careers that if you can imagine it kind of like a bell curve, most people you work with, and this is not a critique against anybody, but most people fall into the middle of a bell curve. And if you really truly want to become as great as you can and be as good of a tool as you possibly can in the Lord's hands or in your employer's hands, it does mean that you need to probably push yourself to the furthest end of that bell curve where most people aren't going to be willing to want to go. It means putting in that extra little 10% or waking up a little bit earlier or just doing that little extra, that just engaging in the hustle a little bit more than maybe most people. And it's kind of just the idea of just setting yourself apart by just like pushing yourself to the further extremity where maybe not everybody's willing to do this step or be as intentional about what I'm trying to do, because sometimes it doesn't yield in any more reward immediately. But in time, doing that little extra and pushing yourself up that bell curve does start to yield some results. Like, for example, this is so stupid and I'm embarrassed to even say it. So I have a dumb little YouTube channel and it's so little.
It's not dumb.
It's I feel very still like not totally comfortable doing it, but we get these press cards for what we write, but I figure why not just make a video about it at the same time? And they're not great. I have gotten better at the videos some are still better than others, but you know what? Like the thing has kind of grown. But it's happened just one video at a time. And for the first literally year of me making video after video, which even though they weren't great, they still took time. I didn't make a dime off of any of those. And even now I make some off of YouTube for that, but it's not a lot. My point is that just as it's grown in the last year from nothing to something, I know that one video at a time, and this goes for anything in your career, one whatever at a time, it will grow. It's just, you got to play the long game and just be consistent. Like consistently try to push yourself up the extremity of the bell curve, even if it's not yielding immediate results. And over time, it just will. It naturally will. Not only will you get better at what you're doing and learn more, but your efforts won't go unnoticed, especially by the Lord. President Nelson loves to say that the Lord loves effort. And I know he does recognize it. And he will bless you in your career or whatever, just for making that just little. What's the thing that most people probably aren't willing to do in this circumstance, and do that thing and just see what the Lord can do with that? Because he loves that heart. He loves the heart that you put into it. And And I wanted to just say just a couple other things too. And please jump in if you want, but like kind of on a more spiritual note, I guess, my two final things that I want to mention is, especially to you younger people graduating college and high school, is please do not underestimate your ability to help gather Israel. Don't underestimate it. President Nelson said, "My extraordinary youth, you were sent to earth at this precise time, the most crucial time in the history of the world, to help gather Israel." That's like a big part of why you were born at this time, is to help people come to Jesus Christ and make and keep covenants with him. And that is not just with your mission or just with the words you might say, but I've seen this firsthand. It's by your example, by how you live, by how you love, all of that. And you do, like, I want to add a second witness, that when President Nelson says that the gathering should mean everything to you and that this is the mission for which you were sent to earth, I believe it, because I've seen you do it. And not only, it might sound like, oh, I'm just here to help other people. It doesn't sound very exciting. You got to remember, the Lord doesn't do anything save it be for your benefit just as well as somebody else's. Meaning, if you're wondering where your happiness could lie, or part of it at least, part of it I think is intentionally trying to help gather people to Jesus Christ. Don't underestimate it. You have the ability, like President Nelson said, to be wiser, stronger, and just better than any previous generation. And especially bringing others to Jesus. When you do figure out for yourself that this is your thing and not your parents or your friends or anybody else's, but following Jesus Christ and keeping his commandments is your thing, and you do it because it makes you happier and life is just better, maybe not easier, but better with him, and you've learned that for yourself, you do have the ability to share that in a way that's going to attract others to him so they also can feel the joy and happiness that comes from being with Jesus and following him. Putting him at the center of your life and having him be the captain of your ship is something that you will literally never regret. You'll never regret putting him as your captain. Let God be your God. Let the prophet be your prophet. Let the church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints be your church. And like I said, maybe it's not going to necessarily be easy all the time, but the alternative isn't easy either. Without him, it's also hard. And I would rather just choose the hard with him that comes with hope and potential and true peace and true happiness. And I know that when I've tried to choose him, I just feel better, and I am just happier. And that's not necessarily always easy, but I know that putting him at the center of our lives is something that we'll just never regret. So that's all I kind of had.
I think that we should just end it there, because that's great. That if you're going to take away one bit of advice, that's the most important one. So
yeah,
doesn't matter. I could add a bunch of other things, just little things, but
we'll do it next year too.
Right. We'll do it next year. But also I think that we could even do individual episodes about some of these things.
Yeah, we should. That's a great.
So
idea. Yeah.
So you'll find out what that missing one was that I alluded to.
Stay tuned.
I definitely don't want to end on that one after what you just shared, which is focusing on Jesus and making him the center of your life. That will be the best thing that you can do for yourself.
Yeah, you won't regret it. It's the secret. It's just hearing and heeding him is just, it's the great secret to happiness, peace, and joy in this life. It just truly is, because we've found that for ourselves.
So congratulations to all of the graduates of 2023 and anyone else who made it to the end of this podcast episode. Congratulations. Thank you for bearing with us, and thank you for showing up and listening. Thank you for sharing this with your friends and family. Please reach out if you have any comments or questions, or if you have something that you want to share with people that you feel strongly about. We actually have had people reach out to us who may be coming on in upcoming episodes. We don't know exactly when, but
Yep.
soon you'll be hearing from other voices other than just ours. But this has been a privilege to do this. We really, truly hope that it's helpful to you in some way. If nothing else, we hope that you just felt like you had a couple of funny people talking to you in your ear.
We're hilarious.
Yes, funny in whatever way you interpret that. But thank you again, and we love you, and we will see you next week.
See ya.